President Joe Biden voluntarily sat in for an interview as part of the independent investigation being conducted by the Department of Justice into his handling of classified documents. White House spokesperson Ian Sams confirmed it late Monday, writing in a statement, quote, "As we have said from the beginning, the president and the White House are cooperating with this investigation. And as it has been appropriate, we have provided relevant updates publicly, being as transparent as we can, consistent with projecting and preserving the integrity of the investigation." Special counsel Robert Hur questioned the president Sunday and Monday.
The DOJ launched its probe after a trove of sensitive documents from his time as Obama's vice president, as well as from his tenure as U.S. Senator, were found in his possession at the end of last year. This investigation is entirely separate from DOJ's probe of Donald Trump's alleged mishandling of classified documents.
Yeah, so this feels almost quaint at this point, this particular investigation.
Yeah.
Because so much has happened since we were talking about this last August.
Well, and both Biden and Trump, frankly, have more important, weightier investigation things happening than the document stuff.
Yes, but ironically, purely due to Trump's own goaling it here, it is one of the indictments against him that is most likely to yield result, to be successful, I should say.
Sure.
So even though it's substantively sort of a nothing burger, exactly, it is a big issue for him personally in terms of his kind of legal culpability. As a reminder, as a refresher, Biden's document issues were this was the I left the boxes next to my Corvette kind of a situation. And at the time, when the raid on Mar-a-Lago first happened last August, a lot of people were pointing to the fact that Mike Pence had retained documents, Joe Biden had retained documents, Hillary Clinton very famously had retained documents, and they were characterizing the Trump Mar-a-Lago raid as a witch hunt and evidence of him being the subject of a political prosecution. And you can start to understand that logic until you start to look more closely at and remind yourself of what Donald Trump did to, obstruct justice. So the Trump raid was at the end of a 2-year investigation. The National Archives first started asking Trump to return missing presidential records in May of 2021. So that's just a few months after he's out of office. It took 8 months for some of his aides to return 15 boxes to the National Archives. So that was in January of 2022. At that point, the National Archives realized that 14 of the 15 boxes that had been returned contained classified documents, and it then opened up an investigation a couple of months later and issued a subpoena that required Trump to return all the documents. That was May of last year. Now, he didn't comply. And that was the fundamental issue, is that he didn't comply. There was some evidence that he tried to hide and destroy these documents, which is now, we've all seen the videos of the documents in the bathroom and the people moving the documents from room to room and all of that. And so finally in August, there was the raid on Mar-a-Lago.
I will say recently there was an attempt by the media to make this seem more significant again by saying that there was reporting that he had shared some of the classified materials with an Australian billionaire. And about information about U.S. nuclear subs. So I saw that report in a couple of places, but then CBS News debunked it and said, actually, there's no evidence whatsoever that he did that. That allegation is not, he's not being charged with that. So I think there's been a kind of, attempt to make the story sexier or more interesting. Yeah. Because as you're right, it's pretty much a slam dunk, but it's just not very important. So if there was some evidence that he did something more nefarious with the documents, that would make it, I think many in the media would love that, but has not emerged.
I think that cuts both ways. In some ways, this story of, look, Joe Biden's complying, Joe Biden's sitting down and being interviewed, it helps to underscore what was so frustrating, I think, to many Trump supporters at the time, which is that he keeps making it more difficult for people to support him. He keeps jeopardizing his own chances at getting in the White House for people who substantively want him to be there for reasons that I don't agree with, but it's their right, over the most trivial, ridiculous things in the world. And here's Joe Biden, who, in the view of many Americans on both sides of the aisle, doesn't seem physically or cognitively ready for office, but manages to just go in there, sit down, do the interview, perform his functions without all of this brouhaha. And there is a way that I think that this moment is reflecting a weird kind of choice that people are going to be asked to make in the general election. Do you want someone who manages to hoist themselves by their own petard constantly and put you in the position of having to defend ridiculous things, even if you substantively agree with them, or the guy who just kind of shuffles along and isn't causing you many problems, at least in the media sense of the things, no matter, whatever you think about his foreign policy or anything like that?
Republican primary voters are saying yes. Yeah. Trump is our guy. We want Trump. He's our standard bearer. And so far, that's that. Again, maybe there will be some shakeup down the road, but not yet. But then also, in terms of the Biden classified documents investigation, I worry, and probably many Republicans worry, that the trivial stuff gets taken very seriously when what Republican voters actually care about is whether there was influence peddling involving Hunter Biden. So, they're going to vet this that doesn't matter very much. They're going to do a real professional job here. But less so far on the stuff that actually matters.
Well, look, it's a Republican House, and right now the House's failure to pursue any kind of investigation on anything has a lot to do with
That was McCarthy's last-ditch effort to save himself. Was, look, we can't even do an impeachment investigation of Joe Biden unless you preserve me as Speaker, and that was not enough to save him.
Yeah. So. Well, Special Counsel Jack Smith and his team of prosecutors are pushing back on Trump's request to delay his trial on illegal possession of classified documents, citing that there's, quote, credible justification to push it back. Trump's legal team requested the judge presiding over the case to push back the trial date from March of next year until after the 2024 election.
Yeah, he's been thwarted so far, I think, in all of those efforts to delay the various trials. So it's gonna go on during campaign season, and look, I think that's going to have an impact. I keep saying this, but for Donald Trump to win the presidency again, so one strategy is just to count on people who voted for Biden just not showing up and not voting. Okay, maybe that's one strategy, and you're going to have to rely on that partly. But look, Republicans have to understand that he did lose last time. If you wanted to win this time, he needs to make an affirmative case to swing voters to the working class, the union voters, like the people striking in Detroit, voters in Pennsylvania, voters in these Rust Belt states, and then also voters in Arizona and Georgia who seem to have fallen out of love with Trump specifically because of the things he said about the election. He needs to bring those people back into the fold. And if his time is taken up by multiple trials in which he is defending his conduct and the things he said and did with respect to the election, I just think that's very tricky and is going to be more of a blow to his reelection than people think. Obviously, the people already who support him are fired up and riled up by how he's being treated, but Republican primary voters have to understand that there's not enough of them to get Trump elected in a general election unless he can make an affirmative case about his economic policies, his foreign policies, what he is going to do differently than Donald Trump or than Joe Biden. And I think he has a case to make. I think he has a lot of things to say, but he's going to be limited in that opportunity because of these trials.
Well, especially if he starts moonlighting as Speaker of the House.
his schedule is just going to be so busy. Oh,
All right.
My goodness.
Stick around. We're rising for you after this.